A woman's worth does not change based off of like when she's intimate with someone she feels comfortable. If you're comfortable with someone, do whatever you want. Welcome back to another episode of Looking For. I'm Amelie, and today we are looking for healthy boundaries. I'm here with my guests, Kelsey Kreppel and Gabby Morrison. And Kelsey is a digital creator. Gabby is an actress and a digital creator. Welcome.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Here's my living room.
I love it. I love what you've done with the place.
It's adorable. I'm obsessed.
So we've spoken a lot about mental health and attachment styles in our previous episodes, but today we are going to put all our knowledge together and discuss ways to create healthy boundaries while dating. It's an important topic, and trust me, one that will help you keep your sanity. Our partners at Bumble have a lot of tools and resources to help keep you safe while dating and meeting friends on their platform, which we'll get into. But first, why is it ideal to set healthy boundaries in the first place? What do you guys think?
I feel like it's important because if you don't start with that right off the bat, then you're already getting into a relationship with someone, and they don't even know what you're expecting out of them, and vice versa. And so it leads to a lot more commotion in the relationship than there needs to be. Whereas if you set a boundary right off the bat, it's there's no questioning that, and they'll know what you're looking for right away.
Yeah, for sure.
It definitely helps you avoid conflict and avoid potential hurdles in your relationship if you just start off with what you want and have that mutual understanding of what's right for you and what's right for them as well.
Yeah. So I think a lot of the times we look at boundaries as something to initiate in new relationships, but in most humans' lives, we have existing relationships before we even recognize the power of boundaries, and those are not necessarily relationships that we want to throw away, but maybe tweak a little so that we're more comfortable in them, whether that be family or friendship or already existing romantic relationships. So how do you guys navigate setting boundaries in an already existing relationship? Or do you at all?
I definitely make sure that this is a serious topic if I want to set a new boundary in an existing relationship. I have a roommate, and I feel like that's a circumstance where you often need to set new boundaries, when you find something. And I make sure I approach it with some seriousness, not really being as jokey if I think it's a serious topic, and let them know that this is something new that might not be what we're used to, and something that needs to be taken with some not urgency, but just to be taken seriously overall.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I feel even if something wasn't, as you grow, you could learn things about yourself where you don't even realize something should have been a boundary, and so then you're growing and you're learning all these things about yourself, and then you're with your best friend of 10 years, and it's actually you change, and it's you have to be able to voice that to the people in your life, whether it's a roommate or a friend or a parent or whatever it is, because it's only hurting yourself if you don't share those, and if the person you're talking to should understand where you're coming from, and it could open the door to such a healthier relationship with whoever it is. So yeah,
I think also a lot of the times when it comes to boundary setting or comfort levels, a lot of the times in existing relationships or even in new relationships, just relationship forming, whether it be romantic, friendship, family, whatever it may be, is that oftentimes you try to please the other person, and with that comes neglecting a part of yourself,
right?
And the other person might not know that, so they might think that you're super comfortable. I don't know, let's just say it's a new friend, and they ask you to lunch every 3 days or something, and you do it even though that's you're an introvert and that's mentally and emotionally exhausting for you, but you do it and you're neglecting a part of yourself to please them, but they might have no idea that you're doing that to yourself for their benefit. So it's all about clear communication and setting boundaries, which doesn't have to be a scary or controversial or potentially hot-headed topic to discuss.
Yeah.
And also you're a better person, you're a better friend, a better partner, a better child, a better sibling, whatever it is, like when you're feeling like your needs are met. So like it's beneficial for everyone, really,
For
to
sure.
just have those kind of conversations.
Yeah.
I also just feel like if you avoid like being honest about how you feel about that, you often like it pents up inside of you, and next thing you know, like you end up being aggravated about it, and then you express it to them in a way that's not as friendly, and the way that it won't be taken nicely, and they become defensive and stuff like that.
For
So
sure.
you might as well just say it from the get-go and just be like,
exactly.
That's a really important point.
yeah, it really will be pent up. Even if you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I'll get over it, I'll go past. Like if you get in an argument, that's the first thing that you say
Yeah.
when you get really aggravated, just a reason that you're irritated
Right.
with that person.
Yeah,
So true.
for sure.
I think like the first step in creating healthy boundaries is figuring out what healthy means to you, because it's different for everyone. So how do you have any tips on how to like figure out what is healthy for you when it comes to boundary making?
That's tough. I mean, I feel like that's something that like changes with time for sure. And also like it's not something that you can just like put your finger on all the time. Like you have to, I've realized that like sometimes I'm in certain situations and I can genuinely feel like everything feels heavier. Like I genuinely am not happy in those situations.
Yeah.
And instead of just being like, it's whatever, just push through it. Like instead of just pushing through it, like it's okay to accept those feelings and remove yourself from a situation that like you genuinely don't want to be in. It's about like same thing with like the people pleasing thing. Like if you're like just, it's recognizing those things and like accepting them and knowing that they're okay. Like it's okay that you don't want to be in a certain situation. Not every situation is going to be for you. So I just feel like accepting that that's okay is like the first step towards finding your healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
100%.
definitely have to read it. I think it's a lot of learning and analyzing yourself and how you feel about situations mostly. And like I feel like I learned most of my boundaries from like past relationships, from being frustrated from a lot of things. So really read how you feel about something that irritates you, gives you anxiety, any of those things. Kind of take a moment by yourself, and instead of like expressing it by yourself, kind of recognize it, and then you can express it better to everybody else that actually does bother you, and it's something that you're not okay
Right.
with.
Yeah, I feel like I read, I think it was either in a book or I listened to a podcast, and it was kind of about, I feel like this was trending on TikTok at one point. It was kind of like, I hate eating in the kitchen when like my family comes into the kitchen, or like my friends come into the kitchen or something. And it was just like, why do I get so frustrated when like other people enter into my space when I'm eating? And that whole thing ended up being a conversation on like looking internally as to like what the root of that is, and then setting boundaries around things that have to do with that, not necessarily like the eating thing, but like the root of where that comes from, setting boundaries around that concept to avoid getting frustrated for simple things like people walking into your kitchen when you're eating.
I feel like it's easier to put the blame on someone else. Like I've learned a lot like through past relationships or friendships or anything like that, and I feel like a lot of times it's like, well, they're just annoying, or like, well, they just do this thing that bothers me, but it's not for everyone. But then it's like, well, maybe that thing is actually triggering something inside of you that you just genuinely yourself don't like to be around. And so like look at it as why you don't like it, and not like that it's just like a person that you need to push out of your life, because maybe if you just set that boundary, then you could have a healthy relationship with them. And not all the time, but sometimes like I think that finding why it's making you so uncomfortable is a big step towards growth.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's important to note also that like people might not be receptive to your boundary making.
Right.
So not every person in your life who you like feel the need to make a boundary with will accept that, and that's just life teaching you that they're not meant to be in your life, because they're not going to respect your needs, wants, and boundaries.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to note that just like that won't apply to everyone, and that's a harsh truth to face.
And also it could just be like internal. Like you could be like, okay, maybe I don't need to see this person every single week, but maybe once a month, and they probably won't even realize that you've pulled back a little bit, but it's helping you. And it doesn't need to be a whole thing. Like you don't need to be like, hey,
I'm pulling back. Yeah.
But like it's just like they won't even realize, and you'll feel better that you're not giving so much of yourself to a situation that you don't necessarily want to.
Yeah.
I just feel like a lot of the time too, the first thing to look at, like if people are uncomfortable, if you're uncomfortable with somebody coming around you eating, like they don't intend to bother you.
Yeah.
So for
Right.
sure, like remember, they don't mean that. So the communication of expressing it to them could be important. They could fix it, like you said. But yeah, they could not, if they're not receptive, I feel like pulling back is really what I've always done.
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
for at least a little bit, or
I mean, it speaks
whatever.
more to them than it does about you.
Yeah.
If they're not going to respect your boundaries, that's definitely like something they need to work on. That's not a
Absolutely.
personal thing.
Yeah.
What do healthy boundaries look like in the early stages of dating, and what do they look like in a dating app?
I feel like in the early stages, it's like kind of figuring out your flow of like hanging out with someone so much. Like, because it gets like, you get like all obsessed with each other and then you're like want to hang out all the time. But it's like, that's actually maybe not the healthiest thing to do. So like, I feel like a solid boundary to set when you first start dating someone is like making sure that you're taking the time for yourself and like just doing the same routines that you were doing pre-person. Still keeping up with that kind of stuff.
For sure.
Like still remembering that you exist as like a separate entity from that person. I feel like that's
For sure.
usually, I haven't always been good at that,
Yeah.
but you know,
Of course,
you
yeah.
learn. Yeah.
Have you guys seen that TikTok ad where this girl comes up and she's like, are you absolutely obsessed and you can't go like an hour without talking to your significant other? She's like, that's actually not healthy. And that's like came up on my TikTok, and all the comments are like people like younger, specifically I feel like younger, because but on your first relationship I feel like you're more you're more inclined to do so.
For sure.
But as you grow older, you realize that that's not healthy because you go through having to
Yeah.
detach yourself from that person. But anyways, yeah, all the comments are people being like, this is crazy. Like, what do you mean? I'm obsessed with my partner. Like, I talk to them all the time. I can't go this long, or like all of that stuff. And reading those comments, I was shook. Like I
Yeah.
was shook, but I was surprised that somebody decided to make that's a
Yeah, that's
specific
good.
ad
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
express
that
to
is good.
everybody like, okay, warning guys. That was like a TikTok ad warning, like as if
Oh,
like,
interesting.
you know, when they're like, you're scrolling for too
Oh,
long.
really?
Similar, yes, it was similar.
That's really cool.
And I was shocked. I was like, wow, this is a good ad.
Nice.
But the comments were not receiving. They were not understanding. But yeah, as you were saying, setting healthy boundaries in the beginning of not becoming obsessed with somebody and throwing your whole life away for somebody
Yeah.
you pretty much just met sounds crazy before you're doing it. And then once you do it, you're like, what do you mean? I love this
Yeah.
person.
Right.
I'm marrying this person. What are you talking
And
about?
that's
Yeah.
not to say like you can't, like you should really like the person that you're
Yeah.
dating, you know, but it's like you can't like forget about yourself. It's so easy to get like so wrapped up in everything. And it's like enjoy it, you know? Like hopefully you'll like the person that you're dating.
Yeah.
But you just have to like keep like look out for yourself. But yeah, I totally agree.
I said it like I'm a really busy woman. You know, I prioritize my schooling, my career, my aspirations, and you know, I work hard. So I kind of just express that to them.
Yeah.
And then if they start being toxic, like, why aren't you answering my texts? Why aren't you answering my phone calls? I'm like, well,
Right.
I told you I was working.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's kind of
That's setting
Yeah.
boundaries.
that's
yeah.
how I do
Exactly.
it, kind of.
Yeah, like saying like these are the things that are important to me and they're going to continue to be important to me, and I want someone to support those things. Like
Absolutely.
I can't just drop everything. Yeah.
Correcting the toxicity is the way to set it.
Yeah.
If you set it in the beginning and they're not receptive, if you
That's
feel
a
that they're
sign.
doing something that's
Yeah.
giving toxic, just
Cut it off.
put it to rest or cut them off. Like, yeah.
It probably is a red flag.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that brings up a really great point about like being busy and not having the full capability to like engage in constant communication. I think especially when it comes to dating apps like Bumble, when you're strictly on like a text by text basis, it's really important that like the person on the other end of whoever you may be chatting with is receptive to the boundaries that you might make. I think that Bumble is great in the sense that like women make the first move, right? So you're not like receiving unwanted messages from random men that you may not even
Right.
want to speak to. You set it at your own pace, and that's a boundary in itself. Another thing is if you are busy and you're texting and you're like, hey, I'm not going to be receptive for the next 3 to 5 days, I'm on a work retreat, whatever it may be, if they respond in an aggressive way, then you can block them or report them, which I think is fantastic. And additionally, if they are being really aggressive or threatening, or like for some reason they know where you live based off of like a prior experience with them or whatever it may be, then you can go to the Safety and Wellbeing Center and communicate that to them, and then they can help you guide through that issue.
Yeah.
So part of setting healthy boundaries also involves examining and re-examining ingrained rules in society that might now be outdated. What can we let go of in order to move forward? So today we are going to play the game Tip or Dip.
Woo! I'm excited.
Is it a good tip or are we dipping it? So there may be a lot of societal rules that are now outdated, and I'm going to be saying them to you guys, and you guys are going to be telling me if that is a good tip or it's outdated and it's got to go.
Let's do it.
Okay, so tip number 1, the wait 3 days rule after someone has called or texted you.
That's a dip. Because I don't think that starting out like in a game is a good basis off of any potential relationship. There's just no point in playing around like that. If you like someone, if you're feeling good with someone, it's just talk to them. It doesn't need to be a whole game, because then it just sets you up for weird games and rules during the whole time.
Yeah, I think it's also just like the opposite of being yourself. Like you're forcing the idea to prevail that like they will only like you if you don't respond for a few days, if you look unattainable, like if you look a certain way, which I think is just like the complete antithesis of like being authentic and wanting to start a relationship off of like realness, which every healthy relationship starts off by.
Like they're gonna know.
If I don't answer within time, like if I don't start with a response of like, okay, I was busy, sorry, like if you don't start off with that response, I'm immediately like, no, because this isn't chase, we're not playing tag. No,
I think it's important to note that like a few hours is very normal. Like no one is communicating on their phone second by second, but like
it's more just like
3 days is a bit much,
or it's like the purposeful, like
the intent of it.
It's like just unnecessary. If you like someone and you think that they might like you too, like just like be yourself and just text them. If they don't like you because you texted them,
you don't want them
prior to 3 days, then they're just not the person for you at all.
3 days is long.
It's just like, who needs a rule like that? Just enjoy it.
If you get excited, just answer. Like if you see the notification, you're like, how do you get the urge to then put down your phone and just be like, let me wait 3 days before I answer
or
that?
Like if you had a good date and you want to text them,
just text them.
Just text them.
It's
fine.
It's like, I think it's so ridiculous that they're not going to like you because you text them back. It's like, what is that supposed to make you think about yourself?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like,
for sure.
I'm not attainable. Or I am attainable, so I have to perceive to be non-attainable.
Right.
Like, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's rooted in self-hatred. I don't like it.
I agree.
Next.
Agreed.
Okay, tip number 2. Leave it up to your date to do the planning.
I'm trying to think of a word in between tip and dip. Like, I'm not opposed to that. But also, like, if you have an idea, if you are like, oh, it would be fun if we went to do this, don't be like, well, they have to plan it. I'm not going to do it. Like, it can be a lot more natural. There doesn't need to be so many rules. Just, like, be yourself. It's nice, for the person that you're going on a date with to plan something, like, but it's not, if they ask your opinion or, like, where do you like to go for dinner? Like, maybe they just want you to be happy. Like, I think that doesn't need to be like a run for the hills. They ask where you want to go to dinner. No. Like, it's like, okay, just, it's not that deep.
Yeah.
I
agree.
Yeah.
What do you think?
If I ask you out, I will probably plan it. Like in my head, but I'll probably ask for like advice and be like, oh, where do you want to go? But I probably had thought it through. So it's in the middle for sure.
Yeah. I just like,
if they invite you and they ask.
Yeah. If they invite you and they're like, meet me here at this place at 7, like,
love
that's
that.
great. Yeah. I love that too. But like, also if they're like, maybe they don't even know if you eat meat, or like they don't know.
Yeah.
They might not know a certain thing. So if they like ask a couple questions and then like you guys plan it together, like that's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I think it's also just like unrealistic expectations on someone.
Right.
Because like you're like, oh, I'm going to leave it up to them. It's in their hands. They have to wow me. And then like, why are you putting so much pressure on them to like take you to France and cook you a chef dinner at the Four Seasons? Like, that's ridiculous.
Especially for a first date. Like,
yeah.
I don't even know you yet.
Yeah. Like, it's about, I don't know, getting to know each other. It's not about like expectations.
Yeah. Totally.
Like a first date can be amazing at a random diner where you talk about things that you enjoy for 4 hours and
Right.
like really connect. And another date could be amazing in France, cooking a chef in front of a chef.
Right.
Like, there's just
It's about the person that you're
Yeah.
with. It's really not about
the date
anything
itself.
else. Yeah.
And that's so circumstantial too, because like I know we're talking about like dating apps and like
Yeah.
Bumble, but like if you meet somebody in person, then that kind of your first date would be like you just meeting them. Like you know what I mean? Like you wouldn't have that. You know what I mean? Unless they intend to plan a whole thing. It just depends on what your relationship is heading in and how you meet and all that stuff. But when it comes to like dating apps, it's open in the air for sure.
Yeah, and I also feel like on Bumble, say if someone asks you out, it's kind of nice to have the like banter of what you want to do, because a lot of times people might just already have their like first date plan and it's the same first date that they go on with whoever. But if they're trying to tailor it towards you, like that's kind of special. I don't know.
That's
I
cute.
agree.
So, yeah.
Okay, tip number 3. Don't be intimate until the 3rd date.
These like
Circumstantial.
3 days, 3rd date
3.
thing is just like so, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say dip.
Yeah. Third time is not the charm.
I would say so as well.
I think that's the kind of thing that is like completely personal to you, and it's whatever you are
Feel.
comfortable with. I mean, like
Yeah.
you could wait 10 dates or you could do it on the first date. Like that is so a you thing that there just can't be a rule for that, because it's every single person is different.
I agree. I also think that it's like also heavily influenced by the patriarchy, that whole idea of like, oh, if a woman is intimate with a man on the first date, then like he will only see her as this sexual object, and thus she will never be able to like be seen as wife material or family material. And that's just like so rooted in the patriarchy. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like a woman's worth does not change based off of like when she's intimate with someone she
Right.
feels comfortable. If you're comfortable with someone, do whatever you want. Do as you
Exactly.
may please.
Exactly.
Like if they don't like you, that's their problem.
Right.
That's not your problem. You don't need to wait until the 3rd date
Totally.
for them to like, for you to do something you want to do and feel comfortable doing, so that they perceive you as like relationship material.
Right.
That's
I
such a test.
totally agree.
That is such a test. It's like they're going in, they're putting their all into you. They're trying to get you, whatever. They're like flirting with you and stuff. And if you give in, quote unquote, then you are what you just said,
Yeah.
which is just ridiculous. Like,
It
why
is.
am I being tested? Like, if I
Yeah.
really
Right.
like you and I feel like this is real, if it's supposed to be real, if you're feeling me and you're trying to be with me and I'm also feeling you, there should be nothing wrong with me
Yeah.
doing what I feel like with you. I
Yeah,
guess.
and that won't change, or that shouldn't change, regardless of the number of dates it's been.
Yeah.
No.
But yeah, I just don't think that's just not
Big dip.
Big dip.
It's not a rule.
No.
Like,
It's
it's definitely not a
there's
rule.
just no way. It's definitely like personal to every single person.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For sure.
And your first date can be, like, your dates can be different. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, what if your first date is like you spend 12 hours together versus like we sit together at 1 hour at dinner? Like,
Yeah.
what? It depends on the date.
Yeah.
As well.
For sure. It's just about like personal comfort levels. That's
Absolutely.
truly it.
Right.
It's up to the individual.
Yeah.
It's not a rule. Final tip or dip. This one boils my blood a little bit. Don't talk about politics.
I think that's
Dip.
also a dip.
Yeah.
It's very much a dip.
I just like, I mean, don't you want to know who you're like getting involved
Yeah.
with?
Yes. I mean, like, in our liberal democracy, I very much relate people's political ideologies as like their moral values and the way that they perceive people and the way that they regard human rights.
Absolutely.
And like, if I were to go on a date with someone and they were very much against all of these like democratic ideologies, that's a huge red flag. Why would you want to be with a partner? Why would you want to continue exploring a relationship
Right.
when that person doesn't recognize the existence of like minorities in this country,
Right.
or the importance of like I don't know, it's
Totally. No,
big dip.
Facts. Facts. That's I wholeheartedly agree with that.
I agree.
Yeah.
I feel like it's also like it's hard because if you don't talk about it relatively early on, I'm not saying like sit down at the first date and be like,
Yeah,
what do you
for
believe?
sure.
Like but
For
I
sure.
think like if it's not like talked about early on, I've had friends who have like gotten into serious relationships and then 8 months down the line, they learn
yeah.
stuff that they didn't know before, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, I probably should have learned that a little
Yeah.
bit earlier, because it just is, they're just two different people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It will
for sure.
dictate and cause issues for sure if you don't speak about it early on.
Yeah.
And you don't want to get trapped in something where you just feel like you're dealing, like this is a huge issue that you're never going to get past. You don't want to raise kids with this person because they feel this way. And now you're like, okay, like I like them for these reasons or whatever.
Yeah.
It just causes that.
Yeah.
Lots of things do though. Could come up later on. That's definitely one, and a huge one.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So we've talked a lot about boundaries here on this show, and for everyone watching, I'm going to give you some like concrete ideas of what boundaries can manifest in your real life. There are things like physical boundaries, which is like, I need space, please knock on my door before entering my room. There are emotional boundaries. I can't discuss this now. I'm not in a place to listen. I need space. Time boundaries. I can't make it on Sunday because I have a family engagement. I'm happy to help, but I don't have the time for that. I'm at work. Or sexual boundaries, which is so important, which is consent and communication. And we have intellectual boundaries. There's agree to disagree, but please don't be condescending. Please don't be patronizing. And then we have material boundaries. I can't lend you my car. I'm the only one on my insurance. Or like, I can't let you live at my house for 3 months. That's just unacceptable. You know, those are all the types of different boundaries that can manifest in your everyday life. And I think it's important that like we recognize that there are so many different types. It's not just like in my relationship, my romantic relationship, I don't want you to speak to me that way. Like, it's just, there's so much
Right.
that it can cover.
Yeah. I agree. And they're all personal to you. Like,
Yeah.
there's no wrong or right. If you feel
Yeah.
a certain way, if you don't like something, you're allowed to set a boundary for whatever you want.
Set and respect
Yes.
boundaries
Yes, for
as
sure.
well.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for joining me today and having this conversation around boundaries. I think it's so important, and you guys have brought such a mature perspective, which I think is so needed in this day and age, especially around like young women like ourselves. So thank you for that.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
It's my
It's been great.
pleasure. I think also like the tips and the dips give us a lot of perspective onto like where we are as a society. Most of them were dips because those are outdated rules that like no longer fit the growing, evolving, and constantly changing society that we
Totally.
live in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Definitely
I think
shape
it's
your own way
fabulous. Yeah.
in your relationships.
Yeah. We shouldn't be like tied down by old rules that make no sense anymore.
Right.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Looking For. I'm Amelie Zilber, and I will be back with another episode next week brought to you by Bumble right here on the Past Your Bedtime YouTube channel.